Story 1. How to stand in line at an appropriate distance from each other. This is a lost art among supposedly mature people at the grocery store. Story 2. I wouldn't say necessary, but it's funny to me how assigned seats were seen as bad and oppressive when I was a kid. In college, I noticed most classes naturally falling into everyone sitting in the same spot every time, even though it was technically open seating. Even my wife and I have our spots in the living room. Story 3. Now that I am an adult who works with children, I feel like many unhelpful rules exist because a behavior may be acceptable if one child does it, but chaotic if everyone does it. Story 4. Phones in class. I graduated right as smartphones became popular. At that age, and with little understanding of how they affect the classroom, I used to think, who cares? If they don't pay attention, then they can fail. Now I have realized the issue is not that simple. Children and teenagers have devices that destroy their ability to pay attention. They have no place in a classroom outside of emergencies. Story 5. Think before you speak. As a child, I took it more as a children should be seen and not heard sort of thing, but as an adult, I have come to appreciate the value of thinking before speaking. Many people these days could benefit from doing more of that. Story 6. Signing out before leaving the room. I am a teacher, and my biggest fear is having a school emergency and not being able to account for every student I am responsible for. I know I am super lame, but you need to sign out and take a pass before you leave, my students. Story 7. Lining up to go on bathroom breaks. Looking back now to high school, being able to go to the bathroom without your boss or teacher scrutinizing you felt nice. Story 8. Studying and completing large assignments one step at a time over an extended period, rather than waiting until the last minute, is important. I breezed through my classes as a child and never learned how to study or take my time with tasks. I always started projects the day before they were due and somehow managed to get good grades. I thought paying attention in class was enough, and that approach worked until it didn't. College negatively affected my mental health because I never learned time management and was in a constant state of stress and worry. Things stopped being easy, and I quickly fell behind without the tools I should have learned in school. Story 9. No running in the halls. It is fine if one person is running, but if everyone is running around all over the place, especially chaotic children, it would be a problem. Story 10. I worked at a very tough high school for 20 years. There were fights among students and staff about hats for probably 10 years. People said, just ban them and take them away. Our students were the kind who, if you tried to take their hats, would literally fist fight you. Then, when the parents came, they would do the same. We finally decided it was better to say, good morning, thanks for coming today, instead of hat, and ruining two people's day before it started. Story 11. Doing homework. In school, I never did my homework and did not see why it mattered when I still scored high on all the tests. It turns out that my adult and working life is basically 95% completing assignments on time, with very few tests. Story 12. Mandatory attendance. I failed out of community college on my first attempt quickly. I was inexperienced and probably influenced by college movies where no one actually goes to class. I raised my hand once, and the professor said, "You haven't been here in a month. There is no way you will pass, and we are not pausing class for you." That actually made perfect sense. Story 13. Rules around bathroom use. I would love to just follow the school rules of one student at a time, no restroom passes in the last 10 minutes of class, and allow students to go when they need to if the pass is available. I have tried this, and it is always the same 3 students in each class leaving for the restroom every day for 20 minutes, meeting their friends, vaping in the bathroom, and sometimes getting into fights. Now, I have strict guidelines for restroom use. It is inconvenient but necessary to keep students in class and maintain a restroom that is open and safe for those who need it. I empathize with parents and students who complain that teachers monitor restroom use, but it is necessary for students to complete their work and for school safety. Story 14. In my last district, which I recently left, students could not be given detentions or suspensions for language directed at anyone. As a child, I thought it was unwise but always complied. As a teacher, I am watching public schools metaphorically decline because students have realized that teachers cannot discipline them due to district policies and concerns about feelings. I am a liberal, but society needs some guardrails. Story 15. Raise your hand to ask a question or say something. Adults really do not know how to listen, take turns to speak, and wait instead of blurting out whatever crosses their mind. Story 16. I am British, so we had school uniforms. You do not love them at the time, but overall they made getting dressed easier and removed some of the issues related to needing to have the cool clothes. Psychologically, there is a subtle effect when you are in a uniform where you feel different from when you get home and change. Story 17. School uniforms. I hated them and felt like they stifled our individuality. Now that I have school-age children, I would love it if they had to wear uniforms. It makes shopping easier and getting ready simpler. No one feels less than others for not having the newest and coolest clothes. Story 18. The time limit between classes to gather your belongings and get to the next class before the bell seemed ridiculous and too short. Time management and efficiency are important, apparently. Story 19. With my preschoolers, I tend to explain the reasons so that they have understanding from the beginning. For example, I say, walking feet, if you run, you could fall and get hurt. Or one at a time on the slide, you don't want to kick your friend in the head. Children seem to be much more likely to follow the rules if they know why. Story 20. Go down the slide, not up. Keep your shoes on during school. Silent lunch for everyone during the first 10 minutes of lunch because many children will not eat their food if they can chat. Story 21. Rules around clothing. Some of them were definitely unreasonable and unevenly enforced, but high school should not be a free-for-all in the clothing department. Story 22. I would say the majority of the rules felt pointless at the time, but I know they are necessary now. What would have helped me appreciate the necessity, however, is if the reasons behind the rules were explained at the time. As a child, adults are constantly telling you what to do without explanation, and it becomes exhausting. Story 23. No masks on Halloween. As a kid, I couldn't comprehend how wearing a costume mask could have been a problem, but now I understand how the teachers and staff could get confused about who was who. Story 24. Honestly, dress codes. Sorry, but I don't think girls need to wear crop tops and booty shorts, and boys shouldn't have their pants hanging low. They told us that school was preparing us for adulthood and professional environments, which we thought was silly. Now, women show up in professional attire, and men understand why a t-shirt is not appropriate for a client meeting. I feel now that it was a lesson in respect for others and for self-respect. Story 25. Dress codes have largely been eliminated, and these new graduates do not know how to dress for work. Story 26. Go to the bathroom before or after class. I mean, yes, you cannot control your bladder, but the number of times when students enter a classroom after the bell rings and immediately say they need to use the bathroom, or students going 10 minutes before the bell rings, is very annoying. Story 27. Mandatory earthquake drills and the unusual ways my school conducted them. I now work in crowd management, and most of the people I manage are not mentally prepared for a natural disaster. Story 28. Boys use the north staircase, and girls use the south staircase. At the time, I was annoyed to have to walk to the other side of the building to change floors. As an adult, I now understand that it was to prevent upskirting. Story 29. Needing to ask to go to the bathroom. Most kids will just hide in there. Even as an adult, most jobs I have worked in the service industry require asking before going. I much prefer it that way so that I am not searching for someone only to find them in the bathroom. If they ask, generally someone will let everyone else know. Story 30. Both children involved in a fight get in trouble regardless of who started it. I was a teacher. Children rarely started a fight when an adult was present. Once the adult saw the fight and could intervene, it was difficult to determine for sure who started it. Could I make an educated guess? Of course. I would likely be correct 80% of the time. However, my own bias and the children's previous behavior might lead to mistakes. Also, you cannot always rely on the students' accounts because the one with more friends will usually have them claiming they did not start it. It is unfortunate, but unless you can confidently identify who started a fight, punishing both or neither is the only fair approach. Story 31. Do you have a question to ask or a comment? Many adults are unable to call and ask a simple question over the phone without giving excessive background information that is not necessary. If you need to know if your order is ready, just ask that. It does not make it any more or less ready if I know your daily schedule or the names of your grandchildren. Story 32. School uniforms. Only looking back did we realize our uniforms kept us blind to each other's social demographics and affluence, allowing us to make friends or enemies freely according to who we were instead of what we had or what our parents had. At the time, it felt like uniforms were a barrier to identity, but they were absolutely the opposite. They were the ultimate level playing field to learn about each other by character, personality, and interests. Story 33. The no-tolerance fighting rules are clear. Everyone receives the same punishment. It does not matter who started it, who deserved it, or who was bigger or smaller. School administrators cannot pick winners and losers. If you want to fight, sometimes you have to fight. Regardless, take your punishment, and it goes into your permanent school file. We all know how that follows you for the rest of your life. Story 34. The whole no chewing gum in class rules seemed like pure torture back then. I caught my 7-year-old niece wiping her gum under my dining table last week, and suddenly every teacher I ever had was justified. Story 35. Bathroom rules. I know they are frustrating, but as a former middle school teacher, I promise you they are there for a reason. Kids leaving just to wander the school and never come back. Kids gonna vape. Kids meeting up with students from other classes to cause chaos, the whole devious lick situation. I know the restrictions are difficult, but I assure you, they are there for a reason. Story 36. It was never about the rules themselves. The kind of socks I wore did not impact my education. It was about learning to be a subordinate and function in bureaucracy. I was just learning how to jump through hoops. Now I do not even wear socks most of the time. Story 37. No hats in class. They are distracting, especially if only 1 or 2 people wear them, as this can make others less focused. Story 38. More to do with my kids' rules than mine. I hate any rule because it might distract people. I went to one of the top high schools in one of the best districts in the United States. They barely had a dress code. Basically, we could wear whatever we wanted as long as it didn't have drugs or alcohol. If you did, the worst that happened was you had to turn your shirt inside out. You could dye your hair any color you wanted. You could cut your hair however you wanted. It was a huge change for me coming from a Catholic school where I had to wear skirts until 8th grade, when I could finally wear pants. I hate dress codes, and the school systems I was in are no longer the top schools, but at least they are more conservative in their dress code, I guess. Story 39. As a child, I thought wearing a uniform was pointless. When I got to high school and there was no uniform, I was excited until I was not. I missed wearing one. Children can be mean about what clothes you wear. With a uniform, everyone looked the same, and it was easier to get ready in the morning without putting any thought into the outfit of the day. Story 40. It has been a while since I was in school, but your hair cannot touch your shirt collar or cover your ears. You had to have a note from home to get a smoking permit. Story 41. No hats inside the school building. My autistic self loves to wear hats and, in hindsight, should have requested a disability accommodation for it under my sensory issues. As long as you are not wearing anything offensive, who cares if you wear hats inside? Nowadays, most people only take off hats when entering churches and other religious places. Story 42. Chewing gum. As an adult who wants to go around with stale, dry, bad breath, I wish all adults would chew gum. Even just half a stick of gum gets the job done. Story 43. Here in Brazil, recently, they approved a law banning smartphones from public and private elementary schools. Although this happened when I was already in college, I, as a child, would have hated it. However, as an adult battling screen addiction, I am completely in favor of it. Story 44. To be blunt, most of them. Many are kids or savages. And these rules are in place to prevent complete chaos. Some are most kids are cool, but a small minority are not. Even that small minority can completely disrupt the classroom, and we can't unevenly enforce rules, so it's a blanket rule. The rest are, no, it's not fair, but it's practically impossible for us to run a school and adjudicate each individual infraction of a rule per student to see if it's bad or not, so it's just a blanket rule. I can count on one hand the number of rules that don't fall into one of these. The biggest disconnect people have is that an overarching rule has different impacts on different students, and there's no way around that. Add to this that kids are always pushing boundaries because that's how they develop. Even if every adult and professional educator used common sense, the amount of resources it would require would be astronomical. Sorry, kids. Rules are rules for a reason, and that reason is that you're nightmares and there are hundreds of you in one place. Story 45. We had to wear a sports coat, a nice shirt, pants, and a tie in my public high school. The girls or young women had to wear a dress and some kind of stockings. The height above the knee was crucial to them. It kept most of the kids from messing up their school clothes with mischief. We all hated it. Story 46. Go to bed early. Care about how wealthy people behave. Be an ally of them and their parents, not just friends. Want to have a romantic relationship? Sign up for various dancing classes and ask the teacher to find you a partner your height and age. That is 8 to 12 dates with guaranteed physical touch. There is always a dance party event showcasing the professionals at the end. That is your real date with each girl. You can go dancing 5 times a week, even in different styles. There is no need to talk or to compete with a club full of guys. Story 47. All the micromanaging of behavior, standing in line, sitting down when told, being quiet. As a kid, it is frustrating. As an adult trying to wait in line at Wendy's while teenagers and adults refuse to move in an orderly manner, organize themselves efficiently, or use their inside voices, I understand. Everyone, please be quiet and focus. I would like to move on with my day, and if one more inattentive person walks away with my order. Story 48. My schools generally were not strict, and I was also a mature kid, so I cannot think of anything in particular that I thought was stupid then but think is good now. We had some unreasonable policies, like zero tolerance. For example, if someone started fighting you and you fought back to defend yourself, you would also get in trouble. Who came up with this? I will say that I see more value in some of the classes now. I remember in English class we would look for the deeper meaning in literary works. I thought it was very boring. As I got older, I met people with legitimately poor literacy skills. They did not realize that Green Day's American Idiot has been criticizing conservatives for the past 20 years, or that the cyberpunk genre is anti-corporation and critical of uncontrolled capitalism. I always took basic literacy skills for granted and assumed that everybody had them, but apparently many people do not. Looking back, I see the importance of studying literature. Story 49. I'm a teacher now. I see a lot of the rules making sense except dress codes. No makeup, 2-inch straps on shirts, shorts have to be fingertip length. They're basically all for girls. We also have a no tacos rule that is pretty dumb. It was created because a student vomited tacos and stained the carpet. My school now has many more rules than my childhood school did. We didn't have any dress codes from kindergarten through 6th grade. Once we got to junior high, the only rule was no alcohol or tobacco logos. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.